Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Leah Nama. I'm filling in for Joy today. So welcome to the Refugee Welcome Collective Lunch and Learn series. In this session, we aim to bring interesting and timely information to you, supporters of refugees, whether you are volunteer, community sponsor, resettlement agency staff, or local advocate, or just someone who is interested in learning more. We hope that you enjoy today's session on Welcome Corps. Refugee Welcome Collective collaborates with partners to provide in-depth training programs, weekly learning sessions, resources, and on-demand technical assistance for sponsors at resettlement agencies, refugees, paired with sponsors, community, institutional partners, and others to support quality community sponsorship programs across the United States. We'll go to the next slide. As a reminder for everyone joining for today, the call today, there is a control panel in your upper right-hand corner that will allow you to submit questions through the questions box. There will be ample time at the end of the webinar for Q&A. Everyone on today's webinar is automatically muted. However, if you have any technical issues, please raise your hands through the control panel or submit a question in the questions box so that we can assist. Additionally, the presentation, any resources, and a recording will be sent to everyone following today's webinar. This brings us to our presenters today. Please help me welcome Mira and Courtney from the Community Hub. Welcome, Sponsorship Community Hub.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session on the Welcome Corps, a new program that enables communities across the country to welcome refugee newcomers. My name, again, is Mira Mendick, and I'm joined here by my colleague, Courtney Cook. We both work at the Community Sponsorship Hub on the Welcome Corps application screening team. We're really happy to be here today to talk about this new exciting service opportunity. This session today is for people who want to learn more about how your community might welcome refugees through the Welcome Corps. We'll talk about what the program is, how refugees will be supported through the program, how you and your group will receive support, and how you can get involved. By the end of the session, we hope that you'll feel informed and empowered in taking the next step to sponsor refugees in your community. Just another housekeeping note before we begin. Today we'll primarily be talking about the first and current phase of the Welcome Corps program, where Welcome Corps team members match approved sponsors with refugees who have already been approved for resettlement in the United States through the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program. If you are interested in identifying someone you already know and referring them for phase 2 of the Welcome Corps program, we won't be covering that today, but you can find more information on our website. Next slide, please. The Welcome Corps is a new service opportunity for Americans who are inspired to welcome refugees seeking freedom and safety. Welcoming refugees through sponsorship is not only a benefit to refugees being welcomed, but it's also a benefit to all of our communities. It brings people together through shared acts of service. Welcome Corps is a public-private partnership that is inspired by what America represents to so many people around the world, a beacon of hope and refuge. The Welcome Corps is a program of the U.S. Department of State that is being managed in collaboration with the Department of Health and Human Services. The Department of State is funding a consortium of nonprofit organizations with expertise in refugee resettlement, protection, and welcome to implement the Welcome Corps. It's led by the Community Sponsorship Hub, where we work, and it also includes Church World Service, Refugee Welcome Collective, our wonderful hosts today, HIAS, IRIS, IRAP, IRC, and Welcome.us. You are likely familiar with some of these organizations already from other resettlement or community efforts. The Welcome Corps aims to equip and empower Americans across the country to welcome refugee newcomers and help them thrive. Through the Welcome Corps program, we will also establish a network of experienced organizations to support the groups of volunteers. Before we move forward, just a quick note on community sponsorship. The Welcome Corps program is a type of community sponsorship. Community sponsorship works by bringing communities together in the shared act of welcome and helping newcomers adapt to life in the U.S. Community sponsorship programs expand our country's capacity to welcome more newcomers than traditional resettlement programs can reach alone. Community sponsorship is defined as an umbrella term that describes different models of resettlement whereby certain program beneficiaries, like refugees, are paired with community groups which commit to provide clearly defined in-kind or financial contributions, as well as volunteer services to support the welcome and integration of beneficiaries in a local community. Community sponsorship programs offer benefits to newcomers, to sponsors, and their local communities. For refugees, community sponsorship increases their access to social capital and supports their integration. For sponsors, it brings individuals together in shared acts of service. And for the local community, it fosters more welcoming attitudes towards refugees and other forcibly displaced populations.
Okay, this might be a good point to define the term refugee. Refugees are people outside of the United States who have been forced to flee their home countries due to persecution or a fear of persecution based on race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. They are everyday people who have been forced to leave everything behind, fleeing war, persecution, and instability in search of safety. Refugees live in camps or urban areas outside of their home countries. Many hope for a chance to return home or to integrate into the country they have fled to, or possibly permanently resettle in a third country like the United States. Refugees are referred to resettlement to the United States when resettlement is deemed the best possible solution, when they can't return home and it isn't safe or reasonable for them to remain in a second country. Before coming to the United States, all refugees, including refugees supported through the Welcome Corps, go through a rigorous vetting process and a medical screening provided by the US government. The vast majority of refugees welcomed to the United States are supported by nonprofit organizations known as RAs or resettlement agencies to directly participate. Excuse me. The Welcome Corps will increase the United States' capacity to welcome refugees by equipping everyday Americans, in addition to those resettlement agencies, to directly participate in resettlement. Since the launch of the Welcome Corps program, refugees welcomed by sponsors are arriving from sub-Saharan Africa. Soon, the Welcome Corps will be able to match sponsors with refugees from all over the world who are approved for resettlement in the US. Many refugees have been waiting for years for this chance to start a new life in a community that they can call home. The group here that's attending this webinar can provide that home. You don't have to know a refugee in order to be a sponsor. In fact, that's the beauty of the Welcome Corps. You'll be creating new connections with a refugee or refugee family whom you haven't met yet. Participating in the Welcome Corps as a private sponsor group is just the start of a lifelong friendship with your new neighbors. Now, you might have heard about an opportunity to sponsor a refugee that you do know, and Mira mentioned this briefly at the beginning of our webinar. That will be possible under the next phase of Welcome Corps, known as the naming phase, which will be rolled out later this year. Applications are not currently being accepted for the naming phase, and information about eligibility for naming has not yet been released. Note that refugees coming through either phase of the Welcome Corps will not be expedited or receive preferential treatment in completing the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program processing requirements. Now I'll speak a little bit about the matching process. When you apply to the Welcome Corps, the process of matching a refugee or refugee family to your group is going to be managed by the Welcome Corps team. And the process will take into consideration information about your group, such as the size of the family that you feel capable of supporting, the refugee family, such as their family size and the languages that they speak, as well as details about your community in order to make a good match. Before the refugee or refugee family travels here, they're going to be informed that your community is going to be their new home and that your group will be greeting them at the airport upon arrival and transporting them to their first home in the US. This slide lists some of the core responsibilities of private sponsorship groups. In addition to greeting the newcomers at the airport, you'll be finding and furnishing their first initial housing. You'll also be helping to enroll the kids in school, supporting the individual or family in navigating the transportation system in your area. These are tasks that most of us have done already in our daily lives, and anyone new to our community might need help with. In addition to these initial tasks, your group will be responsible for helping newcomers access key documentation, such as their social security card, a state ID or driver's license, and accessing health services, learning English, and finding their first job here in the US. We all have experience doing these things for ourselves and for our friends, and through the Welcome Corps private sponsors work together on these items for an arriving refugee newcomer, and by doing so, they foster a mutual friendship with their new neighbors.
We're now going to see some of this welcoming in action. We're going to show a short video of a sponsor and a refugee newcomer that illustrates just how powerful these connections can become.
Je fais le pourcentage, j'ai ajouté de home income.
Souvent, quand on me pose la question comment vous êtes arrivé ici, je dis pas de foot. Je ne savais pas où je partais, mais je savais que je dois partir. Du Cameroun, Nigeria, Niger, Mali, quand j'ai vu mon fils pour la dernière fois. Et ça, je regrette beaucoup. Je n'ai même pas eu le temps de lui dire que je sortais de partir. Il s'est réveillé, il a dit pas transformant. Je veux voir mon enfant, ma nièce, mes frères, ma mère. Ça fait 8 ans. 8 ans déjà. Je suis dit, je suis en prison. Je m'assieds, je suis entouré par une bonne personne.
It hurts every time I hear his story. Another role that we play for him of a safe place to be set and understand the things that are not good, but still to have hope that they will get better. Okay, now we're going to chat. Yeah, ready. Excellent. Congratulations. We know that there's a lot of success in his future. It's a question of figuring out exactly how to help him get there, and we take one step at a time.
We apologize for some of the technical difficulties, but as you can see in the chat, this will be sent out to all attendees and you can watch the video again. But hopefully you did get to see or read the captions that Bomti fled Cameroon by foot, traveled through several countries, and finally found refuge in Chicago thanks to Sylvia and her community. Every refugee's newcomer journey is unique to them. Through the Welcome Corps, you can welcome a refugee newcomer like Bomti or an entire family that has fled their homeland and has likely been waiting in a camp for years. Now, take a second to think, why are you inspired to get involved in the Welcome Corps? Sylvia met Bomti through her synagogue's refugee support program, and they've since developed a positive and lasting impact on each other's lives. Everyone has a reason to help our new neighbors, whether our own family arrived in the US as refugees or immigrants, or we value diversity in our community, or we care about serving others when they need it most. While all of our reasons may differ, we're gathered today because we have a shared interest in learning more about the Welcome Corps. In the chat, if you feel comfortable, share a little bit about why you're interested in welcoming a refugee newcomer. So hopefully everyone is feeling very inspired and motivated now to get started. So we'll talk a little bit about how to apply for the Welcome Corps program. To apply, each group has to have at least 5 citizens or lawful permanent residents over the age of 18 who live in or near the same community. Any of you here today can form a group with others present or within your own networks as long as you meet these minimum requirements. This group approach to sponsorship will set you up for success so you can each contribute without all of the responsibilities falling on any one person. Once you form a group, at least one member will take the 3 to 4 hour comprehensive online training. Everyone will complete background checks. You will develop a welcome plan detailing how you will carry out core private sponsorship responsibilities, and you'll also need to fundraise $2,375 in cash or in-kind contributions per refugee being welcomed. In-kind donations can be things like temporary housing, clothing, furniture, and basic necessities. Before the application can be approved, you'll need to raise at least 60% of the funds, which you'll use to secure and furnish initial housing and provide for basic necessities until the refugees are able to access initial public benefits and find their first job in the US. The Welcome Corps has resources along the way to help with each step. For example, a virtual application support session or live support with a Welcome Corps representative to navigate the application process and answer any questions about your group's tailored welcome plan. There are also other tools on the website like a fundraising guide and tips on securing housing. Your application, which includes your welcome plan, background check results, training completion certificate, and fundraising report, will be submitted through the Welcome Corps website and will be reviewed by trained Welcome Corps team members, possibly by Courtney or me. Upon review, your group will either be approved and connected to an experienced organization for ongoing support, or you might be asked to provide more information with the option to reconnect with a Welcome Corps representative to provide additional support. A note about the welcome plan, since this is really the heart of your Welcome Corps application. The welcome plan includes questions and information to help you and your private sponsor group members plan how you'll support refugee newcomers during the initial sponsorship period of 90 days. Each community is unique, and this plan will guide you and your group in finding services and support in your community. For assistance developing your welcome plan, again, we encourage you to attend an application support session webinar. The webinar provides an overview of the sponsor application process, including how to complete your welcome plan. Sponsorship can be a very challenging experience, but you won't be alone. As I mentioned, throughout the application process, groups will have access to training and all kinds of resources, including checklists and guides. Once your application is approved and you are matched with a refugee newcomer or family, groups are paired with an experienced organization to coach you throughout the process. These organizations that provide guidance throughout the process are called private sponsor organizations, or PSOs. PSOs have several different responsibilities, including recruiting sponsors, providing application support, post-arrival mentorship and guidance, intervening on issues of concern, and reviewing 30 and 90-day reports to ensure services have been delivered.
You can start the process of applying today. The application portal for the Welcome Corps is open, and you can start working on your application to sponsor newcomers in your community today. As Mira mentioned, there are supports available for your group throughout the process. And you don't need to be experts in welcoming refugees. You just need to be willing to share your time and knowledge and do a little research, and generally be a good friend to a new neighbor. The first step, as we mentioned, is forming your private sponsorship group. As you form your group, keep in mind that each member should bring unique skills and capabilities to the group. For example, you may want to have one person manage fundraising progress and help the refugee newcomer with budgeting and gaining employment, so all things finance related. You might want another group member to lead efforts to identify housing and setting up basic home furnishings, someone to apply for benefits and navigate healthcare for the refugee newcomers once they arrive. Again, someone to coordinate the initial airport pickup and help the refugee newcomers get to know their surroundings. And lastly, someone else to help enroll the children in school and get the adults the English language support that they need. So once you've formed your group, you can begin your application. This slide just sort of summarizes the application process steps. And as we get to the end of our presentation, I just want to recap the process. Once you've formed your private sponsorship group, you'll go through the process of applying together step by step. This will include each member of your group completing a background check and signing the commitment form, at least one member completing the required training, although keep in mind that any member can take the training at any time. And the application process will also include attending an application support session, developing your welcome plan, fundraising, and finally submitting your application for review. Like Mira mentioned, we really advise taking your time to complete your group's welcome plan. Use this opportunity to research the resources available in your specific community and detail how your group plans to approach each of the core areas of responsibility. And also keep in mind, once the newcomers arrive, they will play an active role in this process themselves as well. Okay, that wraps up the material that we've planned for. Thank you so much for taking the time today to learn more about the Welcome Corps program. We know that we went over a lot of information, so we'd love to answer as many questions as we have time for. For those questions that we can't get to, I think it's worth mentioning that the Welcome Corps frequently asked questions page, the FAQ page, actually has a lot of great information and can be a great resource as you get started.
Great, thank you so much, Courtney and Mira. Like they said, we are now at a time for answering questions. And as a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. And so I'll go ahead and ask them out loud. I'll read them out, and then you know, both can take time to answer the following questions. Just a second, I'm sorry. All right, our first question is, when will the second phase of the Welcome Corps program start, and why all the secrecy?
That's a good question. Very popular question. The second phase will start later in 2023. I apologize that it feels like secrecy. Really, just a lot of the policy is still being worked out. But the best way to stay updated is to go to the Welcome Corps website, and you can sign up to receive updates on the program, and they will send out an email once the second phase opens.
And then how long does it take to travel after applying?
That's another great question. Once you've submitted your application, it could take a couple weeks before your application is approved and your private sponsorship group is certified to be matched with a refugee family or refugee individual. And once that process is complete, it could take somewhere between 1 and 3 months before your group who you've been matched with is set to travel.
Thank you. So we in Turkey are being subjected to forced deportation. Please, we appeal to you to launch the second phase as quickly as possible. So, not quite a question, but if you could take that with you. And then, hello everyone, I'm a refugee in Uganda who is super excited to utilize the opportunity of Welcome Corps Welcome Corps provides and immigrate to the U.S. Not quite a question there either, but and then when will the naming phase or phase 2 start? I would like to know this, please. And I think that question has already been answered. Do you think this new program will survive another far-right administration change in Washington?
That's another good question. I mean, I feel confident that this program, it really garners support from the community, and it creates a lot of activists within the community and just generally broadens support for refugee resettlement. And we don't know what the future will hold, but it's proven to be a strong program that we hope will exist as a pathway for refugees for many years to come.
Thank you. And then what will refugees have to do in order to prepare for phase 2?
So all eligibility information for phase 2 will be announced later in 2023. Right now, we don't have that information.
And are all refugees eligible to be sponsored, or are there restrictions in both phases, phase 1 and phase 2?
Well, in phase 1, we're currently primarily resettling refugees from sub-Saharan Africa, as we mentioned, although that's now being opened up to resettlement support centers all over the world. And in phase 2, that will be part of the eligibility criteria that gets released. If there are any geographic restrictions, we'll know once that information is available.
And I'll just add that all refugees sponsored through the Welcome Corps program have to meet the eligibility and admissibility criteria to be approved for resettlement through the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program.
So many refugees, like myself, question from the question box, are scared that Trump might halt the Welcome Corps if he becomes president again. Should we be scared about that?
I think, like Mira said, we can't know the future. However, I think that the Welcome Corps program is only going to strengthen support for refugee resettlement in this country by the nature of building connections directly between refugees and their new neighbors. More people are going to know about refugee resettlement. More people are going to be interested in participating. And I think as public support grows, it will only strengthen the chances that this will be an ongoing pillar of refugee resettlement for the United States.
All right, well, thank you so much to our presenters. I think that those are all the questions that I saw in the question box. But thanks again to Mira and to Courtney for such a great presentation. Oh, looks like we got a few more questions, so let me go ahead and get those asked. Okay, so what's the processing time for refugees to move through Welcome Corps?
So refugees that have been approved for or referred already to the US RAP, again, as Courtney said, will travel to the US typically within 3 months or so. I don't have much. I don't know if Courtney, if you have any other information on the refugee processing side.
Yeah, because refugees participating in Welcome Corps are going to have to go through the same vetting and review process that all refugees being referred to US RAP. The processing time would be similar, and I can't speak to specifics for different regions, but you'd expect similar processing time to refugees coming through other channels of the US Refugee Admissions Program, and then also add on, any time for processing the Welcome Corps application. To that.
Right. It's important to note that this does not expedite the resettlement of refugees.
And then the question, how does one get referred to the US RAP? looks like the individuals that registered with the UNHCR as a refugee. So how does one get referred to USRAP?
It sounds like that is primarily a phase 2 question, probably, how that referral process will work. And again, we'll have more information on that process later in the year, but your sponsor will have the opportunity to apply for Welcome Corps and name the refugee that they wish to resettle, and that process acts as the referral process to the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program. And right now, again, sorry, just not all refugees right now can be resettled through Welcome Corps. We are just piloting this program, and right now it is primarily resettling refugees in sub-Saharan Africa, although it is going to expand to other regions around the world.
And then are only those who have received refugee recognition in the United Nations High Commissions for Refugees included for Welcome Corps?
Yes, you have to meet those eligibility criteria.
And then how can one get in contact with potential sponsors in the U.S. to create relationship as they wait for phase 2?
Welcome Corps is not facilitating those relationships. It's primarily acting to reunite friends and family. So folks in the U.S. who have already identified a refugee.
I'm just going to give it a few more seconds to see if there's any more questions that come in before.
No problem.
Looks like there's someone from Somali who hopes that when phase 2 opens up, they'll be eligible. Okay, well, thank you so much, Mara and Courtney, for such a great presentation. And to all attendees, thank you for the wonderful questions. We would like to hear from you and receive any feedback on today's Lunch and Learn and hear your suggestions for future Lunch and Learn topics. We ask that you take a moment now to complete a survey. Use your phone to follow the QR code on the screen, or you can follow the link in the chat. We look forward to hearing from you. You will receive a follow-up email with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. And on behalf of Refugee Welcome Collective, thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye, Leah.
Have a good one.
Thanks for your help.
Yeah, thank you.